Welcome to the Pioneers of Innovation podcast today. Here with me is today Professor Rajiv Sinha, who is actually built a company called Terra Aqua, and we are going to talk about it today. So, Professor Sinha, and if you don't mind, can I call you Rajiv?
Please go ahead. Yeah.
So Rajiv, as you think about, can you tell me a little bit about your journey before we start, all the way up to coming to Terra Aqua, where you started, your beginning, what have you done in the past?
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me for the podcast today. I started my journey at IIT Kanpur in 1994 as a faculty in the civil engineering department, and then moved to the Department of Earth Sciences in 2014. I am primarily, been working on different problems related to rivers, water, using a lot of data from the satellite remote sensing and GIS and so on. Now, about 7 years ago, when we started thinking about this company Terra Aqua UAV Solutions, we thought of utilizing the data which we can acquire from the drones, very high resolution data on land, water, vegetation, and then think about how do we use them for various kind of applications. And since then, the company has been engaged in multiple projects for the government, for the private sector, to provide solutions, primarily solutions for different kinds of problems related to disasters, related to terrain management, related to town planning, and so on. That's the small journey which we have had so far.
Well, I think it's an interesting journey, but as you think about it in that journey, so what was the turning point? What inspired you actually to create Terra Aqua? And then maybe you can talk about a little bit as to how the IIT Kanpur ecosystem may have helped you in that whole process. So if you don't mind, just share with us and our audience today a little bit about your journey in that aspect.
Sure. So when we incubated this company within the incubation system of IIT Kanpur, the drones and the UAV were just coming up, in the market for different applications, and we realized that the drones were merely being used to take high resolution pictures, but I realized that there is a huge power in terms of the data which actually lied there, and there were no standard protocols for acquiring the data, ascertaining the accuracy of the data, and deriving certain products which could be extremely useful for the terrain evaluation and so on. That's what prompted me and to create this company. There were a lot of companies which were focused on creating technologies for drone manufacturing, sensors, and so on. But there were very few in that part in that market to create the solutions out of that kind of a data. So that was the starting point when we formed that company actually.
Interesting. But so as you think about it, and you thought about this product, the solution, primarily from a data side that you needed and collected out there, what were the key steps that you might have taken during that period to really come up and validate your product or solution for the market actually? And in that process, because nothing goes without being able to get some money from some way or the other, I'm sure you raised some money. Tell us a little bit about your journey in how that process worked and how did it all happen actually?
So yes, within the IIT system, we have this wonderful incubation system of SIIC, which was earlier called SIDBI. And so when I was thinking about that company, I interacted with them, and they were extremely useful and helpful to give me the guidelines of setting up this company under the faculty student entrepreneurship program. We had just been started on that, and then initially we started on some very small projects with small private investors and put in some of our own money to create some solutions. But then very quickly we managed to get some funding from the government agencies. For example, we did a project for the Hyderabad Municipal Corporation for creating a water and lake inventory data sets. We did a project with the Enforcement Directorate and many other agencies. They could see the power of high resolution data and how they can make use of that data for management of water resources, vegetation mapping, and so on. So we did a lot of projects with the government agencies to start with, and then of course a lot of private partners also came in to help us.
Very good. In this whole journey, because we today live in a world where it's not about individuals, it's also about teams and people around you. Can you talk a little bit about maybe your students who worked with you or your team that you built around it, and how did they help the whole ecosystem of building and creating this solution actually? Because it's really not a one-stop process. It is really a journey when I think about any company that is designed and built. And it's not individuals, it's really the teams.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is the beauty of the system which we have at SIIC, that most of these companies have started as a faculty student entrepreneurship program, which means that a faculty acts as a mentor, and the students, PhD and masters, and sometimes even bachelor students, they act as the working force for this company, and that is exactly how we kind of combine the research which they are doing into a solution which we can produce through the company. So I was very lucky to have a bunch of some very good PhD and master students who are continuing in the company. They have performed their research as well as they have contributed to the company in a big way. They generated new algorithms, new data set processing pipelines, and that's how we have grown. Plus of course a very nice guidance and mentorship from the SIIC for sure.
That's great, actually. But I'm sure as you evolved out there, there were some major technical challenges that you may have experienced during that process. And one of the things I've learned is that as you start thinking about from a prototype or in a lab environment getting into the real world, what are the challenges that you faced out there and how did you overcome them?
Yes, there were many challenges. I think the first challenge which came was to be able to convince the agencies and the users towards the utility of such kind of data sets, the big data set, and high resolution data and so on. And because they were used to a satellite based remote sensing data set, but the high resolution data which was coming from the drones, they were not obviously used to see that application. But then when they saw the power, they realized the potential of that. So that was the easiest step. The second step, of course, was more of a technical side, in the sense of whenever you deal with such kind of big data sets, the handling of that data, archival, processing, and rendering, all of that required to build a slightly upgraded infrastructure. That took some time as well, but we managed all of that. And then, of course, the challenge, of course, is that when you prepare a solution, like this, it has to be easily communicable, to the audience. They don't understand the technical details of data processing which has gone in. They want to see the final product, and so if you can render a good product to them, that really goes a long way. So these were the challenges which we faced, and that was difficult to handle, but we managed it quite well.
I must say I was impressed actually looking at the data. And it was not about the data, it was the imagery that was created and talked about on how when we look at UP or we look at Kanpur or any of these areas and we talk about the flood-prone zones that we have, we don't realize that it happens every single year, but people basically forget about it and keep doing things which they shouldn't be doing out there. So as you think about from your strategy side and talking and working with the government agencies as well as maybe some private areas, what are the different areas that you think your business can grow into actually? And can you talk and elaborate a little bit more?
Yes. So this recent project which we did was with the NTT data under the CSR initiative, and that project obviously looked at the flood risk mapping of a part of the Kanpur region. So it was a very specific project in a small area, and the idea was to highlight the the visualization of a flood risk on a WebGIS platform. So we did that. But then, when you have such kind of high resolution data set, this data set can be used for multiple purposes. For example, the town planning, for example, the mapping of and monitoring of all the water bodies, encroachment areas, and all of that. So all of that can be done very easily, and we are already in touch with the local agencies like Kanpur Development Authority or UP Irrigation Department, how we can help them to understand the power of these data sets and how they can make use of that for solving their day-to-day problems. So we are already in touch with the various agencies and to take it to the next level, basically. Yeah.
These are major problems, and I'm so glad you are there to help in that whole process out there. But working with government is sometimes, I'm sure, a challenge out there, and they do bring a lot of value. They help you basically set up the stage and take your prototype into the field. But have you thought about anything in the commercial side that might also help you take your business and not be so dependent on just the central government or state government or bodies out there?
Yes, so we are in the process of discussing all of this. I have to admit that being an academic, I don't understand the business part a lot, but we have been very successful. For example, in recent years, getting some very large grants from the Dronagiri scheme of DST and the Social Innovation Lab of Citibank, and these programs are designed to kind of train us, the companies and the company other staff in the company to take the product to the business level. That's one part of it. But then yes, what we are trying to do is to develop some of these research ideas into specific products, the WebGIS products, for example, or monitoring products, which we can release to this to the interested agencies, including the private partners, on a subscription basis. That could be one business model which we are thinking of doing that. Plus, of course, generating the mobile based apps, for example, and commercializing that in many ways and so on. We can also think about incentivizing the farmers to get some advance warning, for example, for crop water management and things like that. So there are many areas which we have lined up where we are targeting the specific communities, right from the government agencies to to private partners, to the individual farmers, for example, to get into that. So there are these are the kind of plans which we have at the moment.
Looks like the market is vast for you, and I can think of another one which most probably you have thought about. It is, we all go for insurance at times out there, and how this data, especially with respect to town planning and flood zone and others, could even help the insurance industry and how you can price it. This is something that most probably you may have thought about it, or maybe once you have a bigger data set out there, that might be valuable to them. So as you think about it, I think you have proven your product and technology in the market out there. You have demonstrated it in UP out there in Kanpur area. Have you thought about how will you scale it on a national level, or maybe at state level first and then national level, and how that can be developed and marketed out there?
So, as far as this flood, response system is concerned, as I said, we have just demonstrated it in a very small area as a pilot project, but we are already in discussion with the UP government to take it up and to support us to develop this on a basin scale management systems. So there are several river basins in UP, for example, which are floodplain. Ghagra is one of them, for example. There have also been suggestions to approach the Bihar government and Assam government, and there are people who have already approached me, and they are already talking to these people, which are again the two other most flood prone areas in the country. So yes, we are now thinking of upscaling it first to the UP scale and then over to the national scale.
Great.
And then we will go further from there.
Great, actually. It's an interesting story to hear and understand from you, actually. And I'm very curious, actually. As you think about your journey, you've been a faculty, you've been a professor, you teach students out there, and you look at it and think about it. Now you are an entrepreneur also along with it out there. Can you tell us from your side as to what is it like being an entrepreneur, and what are the challenges you faced being an entrepreneur, and if there is a message for future entrepreneurs that you can actually give for them to know and understand and appreciate it?
Sure. Yes, I have to say that for the first 20 years of my career, I have been a pure researcher, although I have been working on various problems related to the society, like floods and hazards and agriculture related problems and so on. But then after that, I realized that unless some of these solutions can be implemented, in the government agencies or in the private sector, half of my research is not being made use to. So that is when I started thinking about providing a solution-oriented projects. I did that as a faculty of IIT Kanpur as well as through the company, and made sure that the solution which we are designing and developing are actually implemented directly by the government. So that's mainly the project which we did. They went like that, and they are actually being implemented as a flood disaster management system or flood protection or flood mitigation measures and so on. That gives a lot of satisfaction because when you see your research being used somewhere as a solution, that's the most satisfactory feeling you get, much more than perhaps publishing a research paper in a high-profile journal. So that is the first point I wanted to highlight. The second point, I saw that when I started working with the students, on these kind of projects, I could see the level of excitement and the happiness, that they are being converted from a student to entrepreneurs. That feeling of owning something, as a part of the company or as a part of the solution was really nice to see that. So that's one. The only thing I always tell them, and I would like to convey this to all the faculty and students involved in such initiatives, that you have to create a balance between your research and as long as you are a faculty and a student within the system, and then the other activities. So that balance has to be maintained, but then you must enjoy that feeling of creating something new and delivering it to the society. That's the feeling which you should have, definitely.
Well, you said it really nicely. I think it is a journey, and if you enjoy the journey, I think it makes it worthwhile out there. But on the same note, if you think about it, this company that you built, Terra Aqua, out there, would like to understand what's the vision for you for the future? Where do you want to see it get to, and where do you think you will be satisfied with it to say, yes, I've achieved what I really started for?
Yes, I think I would like to see that this company becomes, one of the topmost companies in providing the solutions which are coming out of the high resolution data. I think that is one sector which I think we still have a huge gap to fill in. The reason is that the high resolution data comes with its own set of problems. The problems of comparisons, resolving that detail, classification of the features, and so on. So there is a lot of technical challenge up there. That's one. The second is that there is still no customized pipeline for processing such kind of data sets. There are issues about high volume data set storage. So all of these problems need to have a solution. Either it has to be a cloud storage or which is not cheap anyway. So I think a lot of companies are actually approaching us to provide that pipeline. So we want to be seen as a number one solution-oriented companies which are not just providing the data, for which there are plenty, but they are providing a commercialized, sustainable, and affordable solutions to the government agencies and also to the people. That is where I see in the next 4 or 5 years we should be able to produce solution products which are easy to implement and which are easy to visualize. That's what I see in the next 4 or 5 years.
And I think that is amazing what vision you have out there. And as we look at urbanization in this country as well as worldwide out there, I think some of the data might help actually in that process, as you earlier said. And we're talking about smart cities to be built out here, but sometimes town planners and others forget about the key elements that you highlighted. So some things, are there any words of wisdom for people who are looking on the government side, who are doing the long-term planning for these kind of smart cities or urbanization or town planning?
Yes, I mean, the good news is that we are no longer going to be dependent on the data acquisition from the drones, first of all. Why? Because there is already, several satellites-based data sets which are coming up, which are going to provide a very equal or comparable resolutions of data. So that's one. So therefore, the hassle and the issues which are involved in data acquisition, that is going to be solved very, very quickly, in another couple of years, number one. Number two, when such data sets are available, I think the data set is not just the issue, but also the processing of that data, the comparison with the reference state, and then reaching out to a solution. How much, for example, encroachment is there? How much, which direction the town should expand? All of this is a part of the smart city mission, and the geospatial data has a huge future in such kind of applications where the time series data can be used to understand the evolution, the changes, the damages, and everything else which are associated with the natural system as well as the urban city missions. So I think this is where the future lies, and the satellite-based high-resolution data is going to be the future of this country.
Excellent. Do you think you are being reached or people are talking to you about policy decisions on how this data can be used to create the right kind of policies as the town planners are thinking and talking about it?
Yes, that's another interesting part, that the town planners, we have had some discussion so far, but being a river scientist, so all of my career, I have been involved in many of the other projects or discussions with the government regarding creating the policy level decisions. For example, we are talking about creating a buffer zone along the river to save the river, to protect the river, and so on. We are talking about, or we have done work on creating a policy document for sand mining, river health. I've been a part of the Wetland Development Authority Advisory Committee, and where we are trying to create a policy for wetland protections and so on. So a lot of these science-based, data set and the understanding which you have developed for the natural systems, they must go into the policy decision making. And this is exactly what I always try to promote, that if you create a policy without a science-based solutions, then they are likely to fail. So that backing of science-based solutions and the policy is the link which I am trying to fulfill actually here.
Well, I want to wish you all the best actually in your journey, and I know you will be very successful. You have spent the time and you have basically built a great company out there. And thank you all for listening today. We are here with Professor Rajiv Sinha, who is now a mentor more than basically running day-to-day operations. He has a CEO in the business who is helping him shape and take the company to the next stage. So thank you again for listening. And any last words you would like to share?
Yeah, thank you again for inviting me here, and it was a great pleasure talking to you, Anurag ji. And I wish that we continue our association with the SIAC and our company grows in future as well. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Yeah.